Hey, what's up guys? Thanks for clicking on the video. In this one, I wanted to give you an in-depth review of the newly released Seiko Captain Willard reissue. So the model number on this timepiece is the Seiko SBDC109. And as the nickname suggests, this is when Seiko reimagined their popular 6105 vintage diver. A watch that was frequently worn within the US military around the 1970s during the Vietnam War. And of course, this watch became even more popular after the Apocalypse Now film came out around the same time period. The 6105 was sported on the wrist of Martin Sheen, whose character was of course named Captain Willard. Interestingly though, Seiko never really capitalized their marketing or associated the 6105 with the Apocalypse Now film. But nevertheless, I still think the design of this watch holds up very well to this day. And I like the features that Seiko went with this particular reissue. They kept the size smaller than your typical Seiko Turtle with the cushion case. They included their latest 6R35 automatic movement that has a 70-hour power reserve. And they included some nice materials like a sapphire crystal and their Dia Shield coating on the case and bracelet for this timepiece. Now, it's not the perfect dive watch, and the pricing has gone up compared to other Seiko Prospex divers. This watch does trend at around $1,200 US, but I'll flip the camera around now so you guys can check out the watch up close, and you can decide if this watch is maybe right for your collection. Okay, so now that we're in the studio, we can take a closer look at the Seiko Captain Willard reissue. Quickly, here's the hang tag for the SBDC109. I think there might actually be a different model number for the non-JDM version of this watch, but I just wanted to let you guys see that. Now, lifting up this watch, there is a nice solid heft to it. And at the start of our video, I mentioned that this watch is slightly smaller than your standard Seiko Turtle. So case diameter from this side of the case, I measure at 42.5 millimeters. Now when you flip to the side, you can see the cushion case nature, and there's a very short lug-to-lug distance of 46 millimeters between my thumbs. And then you can also see how the case actually gets smaller as you go towards the case back here. So it kind of bellies out near the top here, close to the bezel, and then it actually gets smaller in diameter as you go towards the case back. Now the overall thickness from the bottom of the case back to the top of this slightly domed sapphire crystal with AR coating is 13.5 millimeters. And then the lug opening here for the supplied bracelet is a universal 20 millimeters in diameter. So overall, great case dimensions, and this watch wears extremely well, and I think it will for a large variety of different wrist sizes. Now before we talk about the dial design, I also wanted to quickly note that the sapphire crystal here has a slight chamfer to it, and it does some interesting effects. If you're looking at the watch straight on, you can almost see that it almost causes a split between the printed minute markings around the periphery of the dial here. And then if you hold it more at an angle, you can clearly see the dial fairly straight on there. But definitely a bit of distortion, kind of an interesting thing that's been done with the sapphire crystal. And I think this was also a feature present on the original 6105 vintage dive watch as well. So the dial color here is said to be kind of a matte black color, but in certain lights it almost looks a bit anthracite or has a bit of a gray hue to it. And then when you're looking at the handset and indices, it does pay very strong tribute to the original 6105, and I love the layout for the dial here with those baton style hands, and you have the stoplight second hand there ticking away. And then all of the applied indexes have a very nice silver border surrounding them, And you can see the majority of indexes themselves are just squares. And then to help with orientation, you can see that there's like a double baton marker at the 12 o'clock position. And then occupying the 3 o'clock position, you just have a very simple cutout for the date aperture. And the date disc is similar color to the actual indices themselves. So it does help with the symmetry of a dial overall. And because those applied indices are so large, they are deep filled with Seiko's Bright technology, which is one of the best in the business. And I'll actually throw up a low light shot now, just so you can see how potent the Bright is and how evenly applied it is. They did an excellent job with a nice even layer of lume, and there's also a lumed pip at the 12 o'clock position on the bezel. Now the bezel insert itself appears to be aluminum, and you have high contrast white printing on the black insert there, which helps with the legibility. The coin edging is extremely well done on this watch, and you can see that the bezel sits a bit proud of the case, so it's very easy to grip and to operate. You have a 120 click unidirectional bezel, and the clicks are fairly smooth in nature. It's very similar, if you have owned a turtle in the past, to the bezel action of a turtle, but regrettably, the alignment isn't 100% spot on. I'm kind of in between clicks here to get this to line up perfectly with a 12 o'clock position there. Now, one of the standout features for the Prospect divers that was released in 2020 is the update in the 6R35 movement. So this movement is 24 joules. It beats away at the same frequency as other Prospect divers at 21,600 vibrations per hour, or 3 Hertz. It's hacking in hand wind, but you have a 70-hour power reserve, which extends it 20 hours longer than the previous iteration of a 6R15 series of movements, which was only 50 hours. Now flip to the side, you can see that the crown here is offset near the 4 o'clock position, and it's pretty much protected completely just by the protrusion of the case. I don't know if you can call these crown guards, but the case shape is very atypical. Kind of a cool feature. It's not a signed crown, but it is screwed in, giving you that 200 meter water resistance rating. Now I will say manually winding this movement is very smooth for the 6R35. If you pop it out to the first position, that's your quick date setting feature. And then you can hack the seconds hand by pulling it all the way out, and then quickly setting to any reference time you would like to do. And rethreading the crown is very easy to do as well. As far as case finishes go, you have some very fine radial brushing on the top of the case, which is finished extremely well. And then flip to the side, you can see below the top there, you just have a very fine polish along the sides of the case, drilled lug holes for quick strap or bracelet changes. And then you have differential brushing on the bracelet itself on the tops, and high polish on the side. In my opinion, this bracelet is actually executed very well. You do have solid end links. You can see that the links themselves have rounded off profiles, so there's no sharp edges here. The center links are slightly raised, and each link is held in with Seiko's pin and collar system, which is very secure to do. And then moving to the clasp, you can see that there's 4 layers of micro adjustment. The finishing on the clasp is quite good actually, very strong polished bevel on the side. The fold over security locking mechanism here has some very nice brushing and the Seiko logo printed on. Very nice milled out swing arms that are done here. And then just under it, you kind of have a stamped dive extension if you do want to throw this over a wetsuit. And then a quick look at the case back, you can see the Seiko Tsunami Wave in the center. This does say it's a diver's 200 meter watch, so it is ISO certified, just like the reissue of a 62 mass that I own. So here's a quick wrist shot of how the Seiko Captain Willard reissue wears on my 19 centimeter circumference wrist, or about 7.5 inches. It feels very solid on wrist. With that short lug to lug distance, again, I feel like many different wrist sizes can pull this off. And I am a fan of the atypical case form that this watch head has. So at the end of the day, I do find that this is a very good reissue, and it does pay homage to the Seiko 6105 vintage dive watch. But I also do think that there is room for improvement with this particular timepiece. I already noted that the bezel alignment is slightly off on this one, and I would love to actually see a ceramic bezel insert instead of aluminum for these type of watches moving forward. And also, for this price point, I'd love if Seiko started using a high beat movement. Don't get me wrong, the 6R35 does perform pretty well. I mean, you do get 70 hours of power reserve. Anecdotally, this watch is losing 6 seconds per day. But if you actually take a look at the spec sheet, the tolerances for this movement are still quite varied. I think it can lose between 15 or gain up to about 25 seconds per day. So that's a 40 seconds variance that Seiko is allowing in these movements. And again, for a watch that's over $1,000, it would be nice if they actually had better regulated movements and also a high beat movement. Perhaps their 8L series that are used in their Marine Master professional dive watches. And the last room for improvement, I think, is with the price. Over $1,200 US retail, I think, is a little high for what you're getting. At that price range, you're looking at competition from Swiss dive watches on the gray market that have the original designs like the Oris Aquis or the Longines Hyder Conquest. And they also have a high beat movement and ceramic bezels and no alignment issues. But guys, at the end of the day, if you're a fan of a design of the original 6105 Seiko dive watch, then I think you're going to love this watch. And the build quality is very solid as well. But as always, please let me know your thoughts in the description of this video. And if you enjoy this content, please subscribe to my YouTube channel. Thanks for sticking around to the end of this video, and as always, I'll catch you guys in the next one.